Rags, I want to begin this episode by thanking you for making me look really pretty online, because you are one of the key people who has created AI effects on Instagram. And so what were you actually doing at Instagram to make, millions of people look hot?
Well, even 600 million people, I suppose. So I was a product management lead at Meta, leading Spark. So Spark is Meta's augmented reality platform for creating mobile-based AR. So in that role, me and my team, we enabled all of the AR effects that people may have experienced across Facebook's platform, right? These included face effects on Instagram, Messenger, things like that.
So basically all of the face filters that we've now can't live without, that was basically your fault. That's amazing. And so what is a product manager? Can you tell our audience? Because I think people probably understand what a developer is. People probably understand, okay, the business side sells stuff, but what's a product manager?
Great question. So that takes me back almost 20 years uh, when I started out as a product manager, and my first product management education was at Google. And I was told a very simple definition of what a product manager does, right? I was taught that the role of a product manager is to figure out what to build. And you work with experts, developers, designers, data scientists, etc., who focus on how to build it, right? So that was the very simple definition. And I have actually found that it has actually been true throughout my entire career, right? There's a bit of complexity, obviously, behind the simplification, because in figuring out what to build, there is all of these hard questions you need to answer, right? What's the problem you want to solve? Who do you want to solve it for? Why is it the right time to solve this now? How are you going to make money? So all of these questions are the ones that you work through to finally get to, okay, this is what we're going to build.
Over the last 17 years, you've worked at the biggest big tech companies, so Google and Meta, and you've also worked at startups as the head of product, and you're also now running your own startup. And so having seen management and seen this skill set literally from a tiny startup to the biggest tech company, what are the differences between how it's done?
Great question. So this is changing, by the way, like in the last year or two with like AI and tools and everything that's available, right? So traditionally, the differences were quite easy to pull apart, right? So you went into a big company, you get a lot more structure, you get a lot more support from all sorts of functions. So you're not kind of like a lone wolf kind of a person. Um, but the compromise there was you probably went a lot slower. You had to navigate bureaucracies, right? Like, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, normal big company stuff.
Exactly. Counter that with a startup, you were resource constrained as a PM. You just had one engineer when you could have done with four. You are, you're working with far fewer budgets for tools and everything. However, you had a sense of focus and purpose where you just pull up your sleeves, jump in, and do what you needed to do, right? So actually, this correlates back to your earlier observation about what you were told going into startups versus, big companies, right? The rate of growth as a PM or anybody else actually in a startup uh, typically tends to be much higher than in a bigger company, right? There are also some differences the other side. The biggest one I have realized over the years is big companies have access to customers and data, right? And that materially affects your role in a very different way. So if you're in a startup, you build something, taking that product to market is infinitely more difficult than doing the same thing in a big company. Like, I'll take back to where we start, right? Yes, we could reach 600 million people with face effects that we were building, right? The product had to be good, absolutely. But once we did have access to a whole bunch of people who are using Facebook and Instagram tools, right? Compare that to a startup building the same tools. Well, they could probably build better tools, but where they would really struggle is how do we take it to market? So that's where I think the experiences kind of yeah are
That's
similar and differ.
what would you say to non-technical founders? Is 2026 the year for people to go and try out their tech venture, or is it the time to really hold back?
Oh, it is absolutely the time to try something. I'm proof myself. Like, I started my my entrepreneurial journey this year, right? There is no better time. And for many reasons. I think the biggest one is tying back to where we started, right? If you go back to what is product management, and if it's the difference between, okay, you need to figure out what to do, what to build, and your team is going to figure out how to build it. Well, that team is getting replaced by AI, right? So AI can help you design. AI can help you analyze your data. But what AI cannot do, and this is what you're going to wait for, like artificial general intelligence, etc., is figure out what to build. So if you're somebody today who comes from an understanding of a problem, where you feel like, I know this problem, however you do, right? And you have that kind of spark to say, I think I can solve it, right? You're down to zero excuses today because there are so many tools that will help you get started way faster than you could before. But not only that, once you've started, validated something, in fact, you're actually even going to able to go much farther in even building real product or even getting it built much, much cheaper. So yeah, this is actually, there has never been a better time in history, I would say, for somebody to do something on their own, because the changes that are happening are just so profound. And yet it's a period of change, right? If you look 4 years from now, all of this stuff may just stabilize. Any alpha is gone, right? So, but this is the time where, like, you can come and do amazing things. So I would just encourage people, if you're thinking about it, it's time to pull the trigger.